Welcome to Neo and Jiho, Part 63. The morning light poured into the wide glass windows of Insu's study, bouncing against the polished surfaces of the sleek white furniture. The room was not like the libraries and study halls one often imagined in mansions. There were no shelves heavy with books, no walls drowning in old paper. Instead, the space was clear and minimal, lined with smooth curves and accented by quiet plants that seemed to breathe in the stillness. The city skyline stretched wide beyond the glass, alive with the last flickers of dawn and the stirring pulse of a new day in France. Tumi was still outside on the terrace, her voice low as she spoke to Neo on the phone. Her laughter occasionally floated in, warm and unguarded, reminding Insu that she was here, under his roof, in his world, and soon to be bound to him in name as well as in heart. The thought carried a weight and a sweetness that sat heavily in his chest. He slipped his phone from his pocket, stepped to the far side of the study, and dialed a number from memory. The call clicked through. "Bonsoir, Monsieur Han," a crisp French voice greeted. "How may we serve you today?" "This is Insu Han," he answered calmly, his tone both formal and commanding. "I need a wardrobe delivered immediately for my fiancée." "This is urgent. Full collections." There was a pause on the other end as if the operator needed to process the request. Then came the question. Soft, but professional. "Full collections? Could you specify, monsieur?" Insu leaned lightly against the curved edge of the white couch, one hand tucked into his pocket. His eyes drifted to the terrace where Tumi stood, the curve of her back outlined against the morning light. A faint smile tugged at his lips. "Yes," he said slowly, enunciating every word. "Indoor wear, casual wear, outdoor outfits, evening dresses, travel sets. Prepare for every occasion. Balcony mornings, formal dinners, afternoons in the city. Add complete leisure wear, silk robes, and soft loungewear. Include swimwear, attire for horse riding, and walking shoes. Think of everything a woman would need to feel fully at ease in any world she enters." The voice on the line asked again, "And shoes, monsieur?" Insu's expression deepened into a grin, almost amused. He recalled the careful way he had studied her shoe size back on the jet, the small details he never missed. "Size 38, he said evenly. "Prepare heels, flats, sandals, and boots. Balance elegance with comfort, no clutter. I want only refined selections." The representative on the line asked about accessories. "Accessories as well," Insu replied. "Bags, scarves, jewelry, hats, complete sets tailored to match the wardrobes. When she opens these wardrobes, there should be no gaps, no missing piece that makes her wonder what to wear." It must all flow naturally. There was another pause before the question came that he had expected. "Monsieur, may we have her measurements?" Insu's eyes softened. Insu opened the folder, took a photo of the document, and attached it into a message he quickly sent. "I've just sent you the body measurements," he said firmly. "You will find every detail there. Adjustments must not be necessary. I expect the first fitting to be exact." The voice on the other end replied, respectful now. "Understood, monsieur. With these specifications, we will prepare everything. The delivery will arrive by this afternoon." Insu nodded faintly, though the representative could not see him. His voice lowered into something close to warmth good. "Make sure the delivery is complete. Bring 2 vans if necessary, and be discreet. I do not want her disturbed until it is all ready." "Yes, Monsieur Han. Consider it done." The call ended, the silence of the study returning almost too suddenly. Insu slid the phone back into his pocket and allowed himself a quiet breath. His gaze shifted again toward the terrace where Tumi stood, her figure framed by the city beyond. She was laughing softly, and the sound reached him like a string plucked inside his chest. He thought of what he had just arranged, the wardrobes, the endless possibilities of fabric and design soon to be laid out before her. To any other man, it might have seemed like a gesture of wealth or control, but to Insu it was something deeper. He wanted her to know from the very first morning in his world that she would never lack anything. She would not feel like a guest scrambling to adjust. She would walk his halls clothed in elegance, her presence matched to the world he had built, not diminished by it. The door behind him shifted softly, and her voice called, "Insu?" Insu turned from the window when he heard her and smiled. "You found my study," Insu said, his voice warm. "If this is a study, then I've been misled," Tumi replied, stepping in. "It looks like a place where decisions become dreams." Insu laughed softly and gestured to the couch. "Maybe that's why I like it. Sit with me." They sat, and the cushion tilted them closer until their shoulders touched. "For the next 30 minutes, we have the house to ourselves," Insu said. "After that, designers will arrive. I asked them to bring options for you. Daywear, loungewear, evening pieces. I don't keep women's wardrobes here." Tumi chuckled. "Good answer. Until they come, I'll wear your shirts." Insu's eyebrow lifted. "That is the most promising sentence I've heard today." He grinned, then added, "Or we could hide under the covers and make them wonder where we disappeared to." Tumi pushed him lightly, but she left her hand against the open line of his shirt. "You are dangerous." "And you are sanctuary," Insu said, covering her hand with his. After a quiet beat, Tumi asked, "Insu, France has many Africans, doesn't it? Then there must be shops, raw ingredients, not cooked food." "Yes," Insu replied at once. "I can call my lead cook and ask him to source whatever you want, spices, grains, anything. If you write a list, he'll bring every item." "Maybe tomorrow, if we get time, we could go and look around the city," Tumi said, brightening. Insu leaned a little closer, his voice warm but unhurried. "Tumi," he said, "when do you think we should set our marriage date?" Tumi's eyes softened, her lips curving into a smile. She hesitated for a moment before answering, her voice low and calm. "If Neo were here," she said gently, "I would have said yes even today." Insu's expression shifted at once, the words striking him deeply. His eyes lit up with joy, and a boyish laughter escaped him. He stood quickly, unable to contain the excitement, and lifted her from the couch in a smooth motion. "Tumi," he said, his voice half laughter, half wonder. "Today? You would have married me today?" Tumi laughed softly against his shoulder, her arms winding around his neck. "Yes," she whispered, looking into his face with affection. "Because you are mine, Insu. Mine alone." His laughter quieted, replaced by something tender. He set her down carefully, keeping his hands on her arms as if reluctant to let her go. "You don't know what your words do to me," he said softly, his voice carrying both awe and promise. Tumi searched his eyes, her tone gentle but earnest. "Then tell me, Insu, why didn't you show me this love before?" He held her gaze, his voice dropping lower. "Because I was afraid. I thought too much of old mistakes, of what it feels like to love and not be loved in return. I panicked at the thought of giving you everything and being refused, but when you opened your heart to me, I could finally open mine." Her smile deepened, touched with emotion. "Then let's never close it again. Next week, we choose a day and we make it ours." "Next week," Insu repeated, tasting the words as though they were a gift. His face softened with joy. "Yes, next week." Tumi nodded slowly, her voice steady and calm. "I don't need everyone there. As long as Neo stands with me, I'll be content." Insu tilted his head, searching her expression. "You're certain about that?" "I am," Tumi said firmly. "Neo asked me the same question already. I don't want a parade. I want the vows and I want you. My uncle Molefe can come and perhaps 2 of my nephews." "For me," Insu replied after a quiet pause, "my auntie and her 2 daughters. They are my steady ones." Tumi's smile grew tender. "Perfect," she said softly. They sank back onto the couch, closer now, their knees touching. The room felt hushed, filled only with their voices. Together, they spoke of a small ceremony in France, under a sunset sky. A garden, a handful of witnesses, prayers spoken in 2 languages, a soft choir singing, and a supper afterward. Simple, but precious. Insu brushed his knuckles along her cheek. "I want you to keep studying if it's still your dream," he said gently. If your heart leads you back to lectures, I'll guard the hours for you. Tumi laughed quietly at herself. If I sat in a lecture now, I would only think about your hands. Perhaps I'll study later. First, I want to learn you. Then I'll be your favorite subject, Insu said with a tender smile. Chapter 1. I missed you when you were in the next room. Chapter 2. I thought I knew my life until you changed the map. Tumi tilted her head playfully. And Chapter 3? Chapter 3, he replied softly. We will write after our vows. Her heart warmed at his words. Promise me something, she said, her tone serious but calm. No matter how dazzling this world becomes, let's keep it simple where it matters. Let's love ordinary days and keep our hands open. I promise, Insu said without hesitation. His voice carried steady warmth. That is exactly what I want too. A small silence passed, gentle and full. Then Tumi smiled again. And one more thing, about food. Insu chuckled softly. I'm listening. Tonight I'll cook, she said. Something from Botswana. But tomorrow I'll write a proper list for your lead cook. Mealie meal, sorghum, ground nuts, dried fish if he can find it. I'll make the call, Insu said warmly. He'll bring every bit of it, and I'll be glad to eat your first meal here. Tumi leaned a little closer, her eyes glowing. You make everything feel possible. His voice was quiet, tender, as he replied. Insu's hand rested gently against Tumi's cheek, his thumb brushing the line of her jaw as if the touch alone could capture everything he felt. She looked up at him, her eyes holding a mix of shyness and certainty. The weight of their earlier words still lingered between them. Marriage, vows, forever. But it was the quiet closeness that pressed them together now. Tumi's hand slid up to rest against the edge of his open shirt, her fingertips grazing the warmth of his chest. The gesture made his breath catch, and before either could speak again, Insu leaned forward. The moment was unhurried, tender, the kind of kiss that began with hesitation and deepened with need. Their lips met softly, then lingered as though time itself had agreed to pause for them. When the kiss finally eased, Insu held her close for a heartbeat longer. Come, he whispered, his voice hushed but steady. Let's have a shower. We need to rest. His arm slipped around her, steady and protective, guiding her gently as they rose from the couch. Still warmed by the kiss, Tumi let him lead her, both of them moving together toward the waiting bathroom, laughter and affection trailing in their steps. The bathroom was filled with soft steam, the water glowing under the lights as Insu and Tumi sank into the tub together. Their silk robes clung to their skin, the fabric turning sheer as it darkened with water. They stood close, facing each other, their laughter fading into silence as their eyes lingered. Tumi tilted her head slightly, her curls damp against her cheeks. Insu reached out, brushing the drops of water from her skin, his touch slow and deliberate. Tumi, he whispered, his voice low. I don't know how you do it, but you make me helpless. She drew a sharp breath, her chest rising against the thin fabric. The water seemed to hum between them, her body leaning forward as if it had been waiting for his words. Insu, she hissed softly, her voice trembling with need. That sound broke his restraint. He slid his hands firmly around her waist, pulling her closer until their bodies touched under the water. The silk of her robe brushed his chest, her warmth unmistakable even through the fabric. He closed his eyes for a second, swallowed hard, and whispered her name again. Tumi. He wanted to say more, but the words died as her lips parted for him. Their mouths met in a kiss that carried everything they had held back, their longing, their promises, their hunger for each other. His strong hand steadied her, fingers pressing gently at her back as if to keep her safe, while still drawing her deeper into him. Her hands traveled up his shoulders, gripping him with quiet urgency. I can't seem to get enough of you, she whispered against his mouth when they broke for breath. Her voice shook him to the core. He let out a rough laugh, pressing his forehead to hers, his chest rising fast. "Don't say things like that. You'll burn me alive." But her movement spoke louder than her words. The way she shifted against him under the water, the way her robe slid across his skin, ignited him beyond reason. His lips found hers again, harder this time, while his hands roamed with reverence and strength. She clung to him, answering his every touch with her own, their bodies moving in rhythm as if they had rehearsed this closeness for years. The steam thickened around them, blurring the mirrors, softening the lights. One kiss bled into another, their voices melting into sighs and whispers of each other's names. Tumi arched toward him, and Insu caught her, holding her as though she were the only thing anchoring him to the world. In that moment, there was no city outside, no future to plan, no yesterday to regret. Only the heat of their bodies, the silk slipping between them, and the rising storm of desire neither could or wanted to control. After their shower, while Tumi was still wrapped in one of Insu's shirts, the designers arrived. They came quickly, rolling in wardrobes of every kind of clothing she could imagine: day dresses, evening gowns, sleepwear, shoes, coats, and even accessories. It overwhelmed her at first to see so many things chosen for her, but Insu only smiled when she laughed nervously. "They're yours," he said softly. "You belong here now." She chose a simple dress for the afternoon, and the moment she changed into it, the house no longer felt strange. It felt like hers. Meals became moments of joy. That very day, the staff prepared a long buffet for breakfast. Baskets of warm bread, sliced fruits, cheeses, eggs, and steaming pots of coffee and tea. Insu pulled out her chair with a smile, and they ate side by side. She tried things she had never tasted, wrinkling her nose at the bitter coffee, laughing when Insu coaxed her to try again. He loved watching her reactions more than anything else on the table. Even when he worked in the study, their bond stayed playful. Sometimes Tumi would slip in quietly, pretending to distract him by leaning over his desk, resting her chin on his shoulder, and asking if he really preferred paperwork to her company. Other times, he would tug her into his lap with a laugh, saying she was the best distraction he could ever have. These moments, light and ordinary, made the villa echo with warmth. There was also the rhythm of family. Tumi often called Neo, who missed her terribly. Their conversations carried laughter and tenderness across the distance. Neo was glowing in her pregnancy, updating Tumi about how the babies were moving, how Jiho fussed over her, and how the doctor said everything was going well. Tumi cried once from joy, telling her sister she could not wait to hold the babies. Neo teased her, saying she must hurry with her own children now that she had found her love. Insu often heard their voices from down the hall and smiled, knowing how much Tumi's world was tied to her sister's happiness. Evenings were their quiet treasure. Sometimes Tumi cooked for him, guiding the chefs in making mealy meal or ground nut stew and dishes from home that filled the air with comforting scents. Insu teased that she was a better cook than all his staff combined, and she told him he would need to learn for himself. He promised to try, even if only to spend more time beside her in the kitchen. Other evenings, she read the gala pamphlets he gave her, studying them with a seriousness that made him proud. He saw the way her heart and her vision stretched far beyond herself, and every night before they slept, Tumi prayed. The first time she hesitated, unsure how he would react, but Insu listened. He joined her, head bowed, repeating her words softly until they became his own. Love had softened every part of him, and she loved him even more for embracing her faith so easily. Prayer became their final ritual before sleep, sealing their days with peace. That was how their first day, and the days that followed, set the rhythm of their love, from clothes arriving, to playful laughter, to meals, study, family calls, and prayer. The villa became their sanctuary.